Hey everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. Today I've got Mesi from Treat Your Staff. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you for coming all the way from London to come visit us in the countryside. So was the trip all right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
it went all well.
So your name of your company is Treat Your Staff. Okay, so what experiences did you have as a staff member that triggered you to say, hey, I think I can do this better?
Oh, I like that question. Well, not necessarily better, hopefully better as well. I would rather say that all these experiences and all these years spending in corporate roles helped me to kind of like shape like a picture or like a landscape of employee engagement and what keeps employees and staff engaged at workplaces. And actually my role was made redundant. That's the full story.
Right, okay.
2 years ago. And that was the moment in my life. And I thought, okay, this is maybe something to think about, whether I want to, just go back to another corporate role or I'm going to try to do this on my own. And
Yeah, so how did you, because you can take it one or two ways. Was it unexpected or was it expected?
I think I got to a point. I was at my previous job role for 8 years, so I was at the point when I was like starting to play around with the idea. Maybe I could run my own business, but I was like,
right, okay.
Nah. You constantly have that chatter in your mind, and then you're like, nah. You have this safe job. It's gonna be okay. So, something was on. But answering your question, I think it was a bit unexpected.
Yeah.
But when it happened, I definitely took it as a sign, like, okay, you had the idea already, so maybe it's time to really make that decision or at least try. And then 7 months of procrastinating came and hard time and am I doing this, am I not doing that? But yeah.
So when you're working, where were you working? Were you working in London or were you working in Hungary? Because obviously you're originally from Hungary.
Yes, yeah? I'm originally from Hungary, yeah.
And so you took a bit of a step from Hungary to come to London, and now you've taken a step from working in a large corporate to going out on your own.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I thought for many years that the biggest thing in my life was to move countries, like to move to the UK. Until the moment I decided to set up my own business. Yeah,
just superseded it. Yeah.
Exactly, which making you feel like, okay, no, that's like definitely the biggest challenge for now. Yeah, I'm lost. What was the previous proper question? So whatever, we can cut this out.
So you basically you moved from Hungary to London to then pursue the career that you had.
Yes.
And then you were put into a position whereby you ended up now having to go on your own. Did you think at that time where you want to go out on your own that the non-negotiable was you're going to stay in this country? Were you ever tempted to say pack up and go back to Hungary? How did you reconcile that to say, you know what, I'm going to stick it out?
Yeah, I think life somehow sorted this bit out because I was never hesitating whether to move back home or not. I was very determined. I'm going to live here and I'm going to make my luck here and everything.
Yeah.
And when COVID came, I was put on furlough. So that time, actually, I ended up going back home and staying in Hungary for 2 whole years.
Wow.
And then kind of like another decision point came whether to come back to the UK or stay at home. And I'm so glad that I came back. My previous job, actually, they called me and said, hey, Mesi, we have like a job role for you. Come back from furlough. And yeah, that helped me to kind of like continue here in the UK. And after that, like nearly a year after, they actually made my role redundant. And I'm like, okay, well, at least, you guys helped me to come back and make that decision back then, that time. And now it's another like turning point.
So in terms of like treating your staff, you're only as good, I would say, as your team, right? And so there are so many different things out there, from 4-day work weeks to, health and well-being to mental health. How do you keep on top of all of that stuff? Is it something that you've just collected what you've learned over the years, or you're an avid studier of workplace culture. How have you put together what Treat Your Staff is?
Yeah. So primarily what we focus on is definitely health and well-being of employees.
Yeah.
I think, as you mentioned, it has a little bit of culture, a little bit of workplace environment, it's really a mix of many things, and primarily I would say the number one thing is how people feel at the workplace.
Yeah.
To roll out programs, if it's about their mental health, if it's about their mindset, if it's about psychological safety, if it's about body fitness, just to get them moving a little bit more, stretch them a little bit more, just leave the laptop a little bit more often. We try to figure out ways how to make it quicker, easier, with less complication and complex projects. I believe in simplicity.
Yeah.
Simplify things. That's the best way. I think you have that thing as well. Sometimes people try to come up with, I don't know, ideas. I mean, I'm a fan of the digital world and apps and everything, but when a company says, hey guys, we have this new well-being program and it's an app, and people are like, I don't even use half of my apps on my phone. So it's I don't know. I think it's sometimes challenging, but I really believe in just give them options, make it easy for them, accessible, and yeah. Usually the quick wins are I think the best things at the workplace.
Yeah. So in terms of the working with people now, I think within teams and corporates, surely is that got harder now because of the remote working thing? Because I mean, for me, it's like, I think corporate companies have not gone back to where they were pre-COVID. I was talking earlier with some of my team, talking about some cultures have just gone, I don't care what anyone thinks, you're all coming back to work.
Yeah.
I think Amazon have done that. I think Musk has done that in a couple of his companies, and even the White House. But that's a very stereotypical character profile. Mm-hmm. What's your experience in that? Do you think it's more hybrid? And obviously you working and engaging with staff, what do you think people are most comfortable with?
I agree with you. Like these days, it's like just when someone says, let's have a meeting in the office, people are like, why? Like your boss is telling you, okay, I would like to, get you come to the office like tomorrow for a meeting. And the employee would ask like, yeah, but why? It doesn't even matter. It's your boss told you. It's like, yeah, why? But give me a reason. So I think there's a revolution in this era in terms of like how workplaces are operate. Yeah. Like people want more. Also like health and wellness is like really coming to top priority. So I think offices slowly will somehow transform into into a place where there's a choice of experiences. Mm-hmm. So it's not just a workplace anymore, but somehow moving more into this Google, Facebook, Meta direction where I'm not saying you have to live and die for your job or for your workplace, but like, hey, we have a fitness room, or, we have a room which is maybe like a silent room or wellness room, like whatever you call, where you can mentally recharge and also like physically you can move your body. It's nearly like when you work from home and, you can rent these flats or buy these flats where you have like gyms within your building. Yeah. So I think that somehow kind of like gets into the workplaces. Yeah. So just to have a table on the desk, that's not enough. Yeah, absolutely. So 5 a day is not enough. Like fruit baskets is not enough. Cycle to work scheme is not enough. So you really need to level up. Like workplaces need to level up. But I agree with you as well. Like with the same speed, also the work from home trend is also rising, right? Yeah. So like balancing these two, like giving them the flexibility, but also to attract them back to the workplace, you need to kind of like make your workplace really appealing for people to come back and socialize there. You're
absolutely right. I mean, like, look at, Facebook, studying them out a little bit, Meta as they are now. Yeah. They had a laundry service and food on site. So basically, think of the demographic. They're probably getting their mother doing their work, their clothes washing. And ultimately, they took care of that. So it's like, well, you need to go home to wash your clothes. Oh, we'll do that for you. Or you need to cook some food. Don't worry, food's free.
Exactly.
So essentially, they went from maybe staying in the office, 8 hours to now 10, 12, 14 hours.
Totally.
Which, in a ways, you could argue slightly unhealthy, because then they put the gyms in, and all of a sudden now your whole life is work. And then what happens when you get made redundant? It's like, oh my gosh, I've just lost everything.
Yes.
It's a much deeper impact. But at the same time, I think, with the revolution of us through COVID, now working remotely and stuff like that, I do get the fact that from an employee perspective, they are demanding more. They want more. And, we were talking about travel, for example. Mm-hmm. Let's say someone's being paid £30,000 a year, and it was almost a given that out of that £30,000 a year, let's say 5 of it is spent on travel, but the boss is not paying for that. That's coming out of your wages to travel to work,
exactly,
to the job I've given you. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, you're paying me 30,000 a year, but you're requiring me to come into the office. So my 30 grand that you're paying me is actually 25 grand. Unless you give me 35 grand, they ain't coming in.
True.
And that's what shifted.
Yes.
And I think that's what's made it very hard for CEOs, entrepreneurs, business owners, because if they are going to insist on the office, it's not only the stuff, the gym, the this, that and the other, the quiet room, the virtual room, whatever it may be. On top of that, it's actually, you're now covering their travel. And it's like, wow, it's a really interesting world where it seems that a lot's in the hands of the employees and not in the employer. Would that be a fair thing, do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally see the same thing as a staff revolution, or like an employee revolution, that is like the employers have to adapt now to the people, because the people are dictating the trend instead of like the companies. And if one company is not flex, then the people are just gonna say, well, I'm just gonna work for the next one. And so then the next question comes in, like retaining talent and how you manage your own workforce. But yeah, totally. I think it's a revolution.
And I think that so going back to treat your staff, which is your business, is that treating your staff well enough to retain them surely is one of the key priorities. I think.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, for a CEO, it might be, you might say, getting their best performance. I don't think that's the first thing on their mind now. I think, yes, they want them to perform, but more than anything, it's about retaining their staff is a major concern. How do I retain this person beyond 3 years? Because even that trend has changed. Certainly millennial down.
Yeah, it's now 1 year.
They're in a work and they're gone and they're off to somewhere else.
They go quickly. Yeah, they shift so quickly. Yeah, exactly.
And from the business owner, it sounds like I'm sticking up for the business owners, but being one myself.
Yes.
You've invested 3 years or a year, and then they're off to somewhere else. You're like, now I'm back at ground zero again.
Yeah.
I have been thinking about how that might change or might shift, and the only conclusion I come to, and I still haven't unpacked it, but it's a bit like football, where someone signs a 5-year contract. Is that the solution to solving that problem? You're going to come to this company, we'll sign you on a 5-year deal. At the end of 4 years, we'll decide if we're going to renew it for another 3 years or 5, like a footballer's contract. Or at the end, 6 months towards the end of that 5 year, you're free to talk to other people, which is like what they call the BOSM contract. And then all of a sudden, you contract in both what's in it for the employee to the employer, what they get, and then vice versa. And that's the only solution I've come to that would then help both parties. So it's not to trap them, but it provokes the conversation that your contract's up for a renewal. Mm-hmm. Let's have a new discussion. But what that does do is create some level of consistency and career path rather than this constant hopping.
Exactly.
It's just like a plant. If you keep pulling a plant out every month, it's never going to grow. And I think in a company, you won't grow if you keep changing your job every year.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't believe you can.
I do hope that I'm going to face these challenges very soon, as my business is growing super fast. For now, our team is more like like freelancers who are helping me on a freelance basis. But on a theoretical level, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, because I think it's like in the same way that the workplace has changed. I think the way we hire needs to change as well. And I think that contractual thing in certain spheres is accepted. It's a conversation. If that's the standard, that you're playing for a sports club and after 3 years we're now sitting down to discuss what the next 3 years looks like, why can that not work anywhere else? In sport it works. It's probably the only sector that it does. But I'm thinking to mitigate that thing of what at the moment can seem, well, it's all but you're employing staff and they're making you loads of money. Well, they're not making as much money as they would have in the past because they've got all this extra expenditure. We talked about you'd hire someone and then you pay their pension and stuff like that, which is absolutely right, and that's absolutely great. But now there's all these additional benefits that you have there that make it less viable, and particularly with the taxes like we've got in the UK, it's getting harder and harder for people to go, well, I can make a business, but I'm just turning over money. Am I being profitable? And ultimately, I think for me, that's where I see the contract stuff maybe be the solution. So there's win-win for both parties. But it creates those conversations that maybe we're not having, where it's sure you want to leave after a year because someone's offering you $5,000 more. Because I just don't see. I think you just get into it after a year. Do you know what I mean? You get to know the culture, get to know the people, and then you're leaving and starting all over again because some recruitment guy said, "Oh, we can give you another $5,000."
Yes.
It's really scary. So what other trends? Because we talked about, the gym, what other trends, new trends have you seen emerge in the workplace?
I think that other than mental health was always I think, especially here in the UK, a top thing, which people talk about, and it's really it's in the culture, so to say. I find, because I'm not from this country myself, right? So in Hungary, it's not a thing. People don't really talk about these things that much, or it's not really in the culture, I would say. Or if they talk about, it's more in a negative concept that something is wrong or someone has issues, instead of a general issue in the public or at workplaces, or how to make it better, or you know what I mean. There's a difference.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Just I think it's just this different way of thinking probably in Eastern Europe, but what I see as a trend is more here in the UK is that workplaces now started to think about the connection between how you feel physically, your fitness, your physical health, and how it affects your mental health. And as you mentioned, CEOs and business owners, they, at the end of the day, they just want their results and their KPIs and the ROI and the money, the return on investment. So they're interested in productivity and performance. So how your physical health and well-being affects how you perform, and obviously it's your mental health first, how it affects. So I think we are trying to come up with creative ways how to incorporate moving the body into your everyday work life. I just came across recently an AI tool which is it's stops you based on your behavior and interaction with your laptop and your screen. It stops you and gives you messages on taking a break, but also gives you suggestions. It's not hey, you were staring at your laptop for 3 hours, you need a break, but it tells you, or maybe not shuts down, but gives a blank page, and then a video starts. Okay, please stand up with me now, and then starts to show you stretching movements, or okay, calm your brain, or I feel you might be a bit more stressed, or something like that, and then gives you it recommends things to do with the little videos, but it's backed with AI, so it's learns your behavior, learns how you interact with your devices and stuff, which I find smart, but also you mentioned the virtual workforce. But I find that I'm a fan of in-person things. So I think it's just always has the power to do an in-person talk or in-person class, anything, but just be together.
Well, I think that said, yes, we do in the virtual stuff, but I still think the virtual stuff, what I've seen is the more people work from home and more virtual things that they do, the more networking increases, so people will start going to meetups more. So with humans, we've been running like a meetup, like Humans Talks, and I've been interviewing the people. And one guy said to me, he said, I'm only here because I work on my own all the time.
Wow.
And he said, I'm literally an architect. I work from home. I don't see anyone. I see them on the screen. That's not enough. I want to meet people.
Yeah.
So he said, so I think there has been a rise in meetups as a result of the working from home culture. So I think people still want that human connection rather than that screen to screen connection.
Yeah, 100%.
And then the other thing, one of our guests, I can't remember who, said, rather than us say mental health, which as you said, we always think negative, say mental fitness.
Mental fitness, I use that too. I like that,
And I just love that shift.
Fitness is cool. The word fitness is cool.
Yeah. But it's a shift because when we say health, naturally we think, they've got a problem.
Health is like hospital. I think in the brain, I mean, I don't know about you, right. But for me, health is like hospital, and hospital equals to bad pain. Like, no, like you don't want to be there.
But if you say mental fitness, like physical fitness, because if you say physical health, you think, they're naturally going to be ill then. But as soon as you say physical fitness, you're there, okay, great. So then if you apply that same thing to mental fitness, I think that for me is a much more positive way of tackling the subject.
Yeah.
And ultimately goes, well, in the same way that for your physical fitness, you're going to have to move around, then you're going to have to do something with your mental health where you're not staring at a screen and not talking to anyone for 4 hours at a time. It's just not healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember very early on not early on in my career, but I lived in a shared house, and it was probably one of our guys that were in the house took a remote job, which back then was like,
wow,
remote? This is crazy. And he had his desk. So we had like this big house. It's like 3 stories high, I think it was. And underneath the stairs is quite big. So he put his office underneath the stairs. And I watched his mental health deteriorate quite significantly working from home day in, day out. And we were all coming in and out because we're going to work and then we're coming back or whatever. But he's on his own for vast periods of time. And I think by the end of it, I mean, he found it really hard to interact with people. He would go from underneath the stairs to maybe eating with us occasionally and then going up to his room and staying on his own. It just becomes so like shut down and introverted. And the funny thing is we went on holiday together, me, him and a couple of others, and we all went away. He spent pretty much most of the holiday inside as well.
Oh, how interesting.
He just stayed indoors, and he just totally just become withdrawn, and we were constantly trying to pull him out. Come out. You're in the middle of Turkey. It's so hot. What are you doing staying in? And it was a negative thing because there were no meetups. There were no connected things. He was living in the shared house, but almost was completely separate. And I could see his mental health deteriorate because we just didn't know how to manage the remote working.
Yeah,
they just
totally.
gave him a high-speed internet connection, work from home, and you'll be fine. And for me, it was like, I always remember that because I was thinking, you can't work from home all the time not talking to anyone. I think a period of time, it's not good for you mentally. We are wired to interact with humans.
100%.
Whether you're introvert or extrovert, I get that.
Yeah.
But you still need some kind of human interaction.
I feel it too, since I left this massive big corporate when I left my previous job. And then from there, I became this standalone solo business owner, and I'm like, I love all these networking events, and when I do lead generation and I'm out there and promoting the business, because that's when I'm with people, and it's so interesting. I can't wait. This is not networking event, really cool. But other than that, yes, I'm just home with the laptop. It's very different.
It is
because I used to be heart and soul of the office. I knew everyone, and it was just a fun thing to be in the office. And now I'm my own company.
It's a strange
so very different. Especially I think when you're outgoing. I don't know. Probably as you said, it's like
introvert
extrovert thing. But for me, it's I really get alive when I come alive when I'm with people. And I think when you spend a lot of time on you don't even really realize. Because you just, especially when you have a new business, that's my experience. I never owned the business, it's my first time. But I'm so passionate about it, and I'm just like on it and I'm work, you don't really realize that you actually socialize less, or how it affects you, and how it affects the way how you feel. It's interesting. Yeah.
I think it's a case of whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. I think from an introvert perspective, you need that outlet to talk to someone to get you out of your own head. I think that's a healthy thing. You need someone to be able to talk to you and get you to talk and interact. I'm not saying they have to go to a party with 500 people, because that would probably exhaust them and they're going to have to lay in the room for another 10 hours. But you still need people. I still think you need human connection. And I think regardless of how people felt in COVID, I think the general consensus was that it was abnormal. It just wasn't how we're meant to live life. And we've hid behind this, you're introverted, so it's okay. Well, no, it's not. You still want to talk to people, And I think for me, we have a responsibility as business owners, is that whatever your personality type, regardless of what the working situation is like, we want to encourage connection. So if you are a remote company, that a brand agency pretty much is now, we need to meet together and have fun, or take a phone call, or there still needs, like when you're in the office, you might tap someone on the back and have a laugh and a joke. The thing with remote working is you don't have that walking past on the way to make a cup of tea and I have a quick chat. So I do make a point every now and again to just phone people randomly just to have a chat, because that's what you used to do when you were at work. And I think it's learning those nuances that make an office, and if you haven't got the office, to keep people engaged and to have those types of conversations. And for me, it's important. It's got to be more than just Slack. It's got to be more than just another Teams meeting. It's just like, pick up the phone, have a just a 10-minute chat.
Agreed. Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. So what with the different things that you're doing with Treat Your Staff, what other things do you do? A lot of personality profiling and stuff like that. Do you get to do that sort of stuff?
When it's like a longer mental health program, that's when it's included, or more like trainings for teams or companies, then it's definitely part of it. And the other thing what we just rolled out is a specific program for leaders, like leaders who are already in leadership positions, and also there's a part in it which is a training for newly appointed leaders. So like someone who never had a leadership experience, or like a newly appointed manager, or like a team leader. Like a series of sessions, a training program for them about how they take care of their team members' mental health and well-being. Because many times, if you never had a leadership position in your life, I think that's the scariest bit. It's usually not the actual job, because it's like written down, okay, that's my job description, that was my job description, and from tomorrow I have these 10 extra things. Okay, great. It's like black and white. But it's like, okay, but how will I manage the human side of it? No one tells anyone. People just expect it. And I think that can be very scary. So on one hand, they try to perform, the extra responsibilities they get from one day to another. Meanwhile, panicking and thinking, oh my God, like, how will I manage that? How will I manage a difficult conversation with someone who's maybe older than me, or maybe more senior, like in experience in my team as a team leader, or maybe they're young team leaders, whatever. And I think it's just this untold thing that is just expected from people to know this somehow. And I think that's the scariest part. Like, to be honest with you, I never led like a good team. I think max was like 2 people who were like reporting, or like a dotted line, but I never really had like a bigger team. So now I'm running my own business. That's one of the scariest parts for me. Like, oh my God, like I really want to grow my team, and I think I'm getting ready for it, and it's growing quickly, and it's really cool, but it's something in me still, like, okay, it's nice that it's CEO written on my business card, but am I really? Like I'm even questioning myself. So I don't know what I would have done if, I don't know, my previous job, they tell me, okay, from one day to another, okay, here you go, like 10 people, or 5, or 20, like whatever. Like, I think that would have been my biggest thing or fear.
I agree.
I do that, and no one there's no training for that. They say, okay, go and do this mental health first aider training, and I'm like, I respect that, and it's very useful, and I did that too, and I learned so much, but I think there's another aspect in how you really take the responsibility and go into these conversations, these discussions, which are not about the job, but essential. You can't avoid them because that what will make you like a leader. Not just the fact or your signature that you're team leader. It's more like how you manage, how you help them, how you make them feel safe. And so anyway, I came up with this program because I think that's really needed, and it's maybe a missing piece.
No, I think so. I think imagine you were in a sales job and they make you head of sales. So you're now managing salespeople, but I bet the expectation is that you're still bringing in the same amount of revenue.
Yes.
And so now I'm trying to bring the same amount of revenue with the same amount of hours, and now you're giving me people to manage? Makes it very hard, unless the people that you are now working with, you take a percentage of their sales, then that makes it right. But that doesn't happen at all, in terms of that sense. So for me, it's like people get leadership roles because they've been in the organization for like 8 years. So we just give them a leadership role, but there's no training. It's just like, do you know how to work with someone else? Do you know how to engage with someone else? Do you know how to do your job whilst training someone else at the same time? And I think what we found in our organization is that we had this thing of never working alone, whereby if we like someone that comes on board, they often come on board as like a volunteer. So we put them on some projects and just see how they get on. But it also gets the team used to another face, another engagement, and working with them. Then when that goes well, they may become a freelancer, but then they've got someone that they're reporting to and they're training and they're working with them. Then ultimately, let's say they really want to work with us and we take them on. It's not such a shock to the system because they've got used to managing somebody that was low risk, then it was a bit of risk, and now there is risk because now they join full time. But we've eased them into it rather than like going, bang, we just appointed this person and you're responsible. So it's just, we kind of like, everybody that is in our organization, as in the agency, they've all been trained by someone over a period of time. Something
just came to my mind, like a funny parallel thing. You know these TV shows when they like, okay, there's a lady or a guy, and then like maybe one guy and then multiple women, and then the guy must choose one, and then at the end of the whole show you get married. It's still like, okay, we appoint this guy and this girl together, and from now on you must love each other, and at the end of the show you're gonna marry. It's like they don't even like each other, they don't even care about each other, but they are told, it's a setting, so you have to. It's nearly like what you just explained. Like, we get a new person, and from day one, you guys, the team, and you must love each other, and somehow magically work brilliantly, and be productive and
because
stuff.
Things change.
And everyone is like, what? So it's not just the person, but the team as well. Like how you adapt. It's something. It's always when it's something new and it's a change. It's time. It takes time. You need to give time to both parties to get used to the new setting, right? As you said. So I like your concept of making it more gradual.
And what we found is that the people that we've had the most success in terms of hiring know the people that we're already working with. So like a team member or bring someone that they know or they're connected with. Like even this morning, a guy's had a phone, we've introduced another team member, and they're like, oh, who is this person? And we go, well, do you know that person who works in Daryl's other company? It's their partner. Oh, but it's like they're part of that universe. So by definition, they know, okay, culturally there is a fit there because that's how it's worked. That the people that work for us share a similar set of values, and I like that. But whereas when you like recruiting someone out there, it's a lot harder to then integrate. And sometimes it's worked, sometimes it's not. It's very difficult. But if I look at the team that I have, I think they've all come out of relationships that either I have or some of the team have had, and then they've recommended someone and brought them in. I think that, and ultimately everybody in the team now is that way, and that's what makes the team so close. But it's like ultimately, I could argue that it's almost recruiting around values.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately, if you can recruit around values, and that it's those values that create the longevity, and people are bought into that. Yeah, they want a mission, they want a vision, and they might have different aspirations in life, but it's the values that allow us to travel together for that season.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's probably the most
values.
important, to pick the best ones. Yeah, I was told this advice as well, like that the essence of like, you know, success and like growing your business is to really pick those people who share the same values and you can trust.
Yeah.
And that's not easy.
No.
So I'm like, okay.
So what do you think the biggest difference is from working in corporate to then becoming an entrepreneur? What do you think the biggest differences you've experienced as an individual?
Well, one thing which I absolutely love is, and it's interesting how you realize and catch yourself, is that the amount of freedom in anything and everything you have is just mind-blowing to me. And I'm a very free spirit, right? So I don't know how I survived in corporate roles for many years, but I did somehow. But you know, I was working at this large global brand, and I was doing marketing, and you know, anything you change or anything going into external had to get approval, had to be approved, right? And the approval process at 2 months, 3 months, because it goes different levels to the top, then it comes back, then it asks questions, then it goes back again, then it comes back. So it's like really long process, like changing a letter. Like, you know, like the brand guideline is like 200 pages. You know, it's like these colors, these millimeters, everything. And now I'm like running my own business, and I'm like, yeah, okay, so it's restrictions, how we do. And I'm like, no, nothing is like, you can do literally anything. I'm like, so I can like plan and be creative, and I can just come up with any ideas about my logo, and then, you know, and then I acknowledge, like, yeah, you can. I'm like, okay, it can be any color. Yeah, it can. And you know, like when you just realize, it's like no one is gonna tell you, no one. And then I sit and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And you know, like when you just realize these things, it's really on one hand it's liberating, and it's just makes you feel free. I don't know. I love it. I enjoy it so much. I'm not panicking when I realize this. I'm like, I enjoy it because then I kind of like discover my own, I don't know, what's the proper word here? Authority or this,
you have your own authority.
Or this thing in me that, yes, you are empowered and you are able to, you know, run this and be creative and allow yourself to,
I think it's that,
to stand up for your own ideas. Right?
Yeah. I think
and no one will say, oh, that's a bad idea, or no one will say why. No one will question, because I build a brand. I define who I am, and I define what I stand for, and it's amazing.
I think that's it. I think there's that where you're at, and in your journey, you are defining what the future looks like. You're defining your business and what it stands for and where it goes. I think as you grow and more people come into the business, I think then it gets a little bit more complex, because ultimately they buy into your vision, and ultimately, I think back in the day when I first started, it was like, right, we're going this way. Now it's like, well, is that the right way? So I'm not saying we're as slow as a corporate, but there's a little bit more conversation now. Like, for example, we had an office, and I was like, well, we're keeping the office. I don't want to get rid of it. And now people go, well, I don't want to come to the office. And we had that discussion. And I told the story that the only reason I kept the office, when presenting with all the facts and all the discussions and all the details, was I didn't think I was a proper business unless I had an office. And that took so long to unpick. And then I realized, well, there's no point keeping it then, is there? Because it's an ego thing.
I see. Okay.
So I was ready to go, goodbye office. But it was that I had to wrestle with it for like 6 months, because I didn't want to let it go. And I had to really, really, really realize, why was I keeping it?
But it's so nice you realized. That's really cool.
Yeah. But that's, I think that was it. But in the past, I said, we kept the office, and I moved on and not even thought about it.
Yeah.
But it was like, now this was a proper discussion. Now the team were all invested in it. Now the team were asking the question. And of course, they had their own motives. Some of them didn't want to travel. Some of them did want to travel. Not everybody wanted to get rid of the office. Some wanted to keep it. But again, you know, it's like, you can't keep an office for when you're paying 5 days a week money for 1 day a week.
Yeah, true, yeah.
You know, like, they're only using it 1 day a week. It's quite a large luxury now.
Exactly.
And ultimately I had to keep examining it. And then I realized, you know what, actually it was an ego thing, and I let it go. Now, what I found is that sometimes if you can hold your business a bit like that, where you've got collaborators and people inputting, I think it does slow you down, but you're still taking people on their journey and they feel like they're part of it. So I think certainly when you're first starting out, it's like, yeah, we'll go and do it. But I think as you bring on more staff, you'll start to realize, oh my gosh, I've got to take them on the journey too. And I still feel like master of my own destiny, so to speak, but I've learned that I can be master of my own destiny, but I want to take people with me.
Nice. Yeah, totally would be my aim as well. Yeah.
But I think it and that's a learning journey for you as a leader, because you learn off others as well, because they're asking questions of you. And again, when I was younger, it's like, why are you asking questions of me? I know what I'm talking about. I've been in an agency this big and we've won awards and now I'm like, no, hang on a second, take a step back and put your ego away for a second and listen to what's actually going on. And sometimes they might be wrong, and then you go, well, I was right. But sometimes you actually go, well, maybe you're right. But you've got welcoming that feedback. And I think certainly earlier on in my career, I hated feedback. It just drove me nuts. You get in my way. Now I listen to it a lot. And certainly now working in software, feedback's everything. You've got more feedback, the better.
I appreciate feedback as well. Yeah. I think it's a beautiful art of giving feedback the right way, and also like accepting it, right? Yeah. Taking it. Yeah,
it's not always easy. It's not always easy as well.
Yeah, because I think the older we are, the more convinced we are that we are just a perfect piece of the universe. But also hopefully we are getting more mature as well to realize the value in that.
Yeah. What would you say is the main difference then? Because obviously you've been in, how long have you been in the UK now? About 10 years?
11 years.
11 years, yeah. So
-2.
-2.
1.5, 2. When I had the pandemic, I was back home, yeah.
What's the difference between the two countries, would you say?
It's a lot of differences. Well, the biggest difference for me is definitely the how people think, or the mindset. And I think maybe it's coming from historical times, but definitely what I feel is just generally how people trust each other and how people treat each other when it's a new situation. Let's say I never met anyone in my life, and then maybe I need to do business with someone. And in Hungary, or maybe majority Eastern Europe, again, I'm thinking in a more like a generic way, but that was my experience. Not true for everybody, of course, but people can be a bit more like jealous, or like would give less trust to each other.
What? Which way?
Let's say we are both in Hungary and we are about to do business, and it's the first thing what people think is not trust, and in a positive way, how will I help you with anything? Okay. It doesn't matter who is client, who pays, whatever, like baseline, but it's more like, oh, okay, so they take a step back and stop and say, first of all, I don't trust you. Like, that's baseline. No one is trusting, and like, don't trust anyone. And the second thought is, how can I make sure to protect myself that the other person is not gonna make any bad to me?
Wow. Okay.
And again, maybe not everybody, but here in the UK, I absolutely experienced the opposite of that. It's more like people, even without knowing you, people give the trust, and it's a natural, positive way of thinking about the other person, and more like approaching each other in a kind, helpful way.
Yeah.
And I don't experience it in Hungary. I don't want to sound like super negative or bad about the whole culture.
But then
it's nice people there. I love my country. I love to be at home. I love everyone there. But it's more like it's just in somehow in society, in the culture, this approach, right?
But
and again, it probably goes back to history and everything, which is okay. But for me, what I experience here is like many times I'm just like, well, like you helped me, like why? You don't even know. You know, like sometimes I'm getting a shock.
Yeah.
Because I'm coming from a different place. But now I'm used to it because I'm here for long. But it's really interesting, I think, and it's very. I think the more you live abroad, or maybe in a Western country, I don't know, like where people a bit more, maybe I don't know, happier or more positive, the more you feel how strong the difference is.
Yes, because I mean, obviously, we as a business, we've been traveling out to Hungary and we've been connecting with people out there, and what we're finding is that warmth, that willingness to engage, and the willingness to work between two countries, and certainly the organisations that we have ended up working with are quite forward-thinking in about building relationship and building collaborations. And I think, I do feel that there's that aspect of a slightly older generation that could be quite suspicious. Well, why would you come to Hungary and work with us? What do you want? But I do feel the younger generation have a bit more of an outlook of thinking beyond the borders of Hungary and how do we take our Hungarian businesses across the world. And obviously being part of an organisation like the Hungarian British Business Alliance has allowed us to see Hungarian businesses come into the UK. So the fact that we've engaged with them, we're probably engaged with the businesses that do want to go international. So that's our only experience.
And their mindset is already like out of the box and out of the
they're willing to collaborate.
Nice. Yes.
So which is great for us. So we haven't encountered that suspicious part of thing, because by very definition, the Hungarians that are part of that organisation are wanting to break boundaries. They're wanting to build bridges and connect with one another.
100%.
It's an interesting one to understand, because obviously the context of the political spheres, historically, you can understand why people are suspicious. I mean, we've got friends from a few different Eastern Bloc countries, and you tell us stories, they'd be on the phone and they're chatting normally, and then one person makes a joke about the government, and then another voice comes in and goes, I suggest you stop joking like that.
Oh, really?
And they're both like, and that was from Belarus. So you can see where that world is coming from, and I think for me it's just understanding that yes, Britain has, say, Brexited, so to speak, but I think among the younger generations there's that thing of wanting to collaborate, wanting to work with another, wanting to engage on a much global, on a global platform. London obviously being a primary global city, but I think what I found now is that some of the organisations in Hungary are being backed by the US, for example. So that's different as well. So I think, we as a company have really enjoyed going into Hungary and connecting with a generation of ambitious, excited, global people that want to make a difference, want to make an impact at a bigger sphere. So
nice. I didn't want to sound negative.
No. But it's positive. But then I get, having been around people from Lithuania, Albania, places like that, I hear the other way.
You get the difference in a high level. I think that's the network.
Because I'm part of that network. The businesses in that network wouldn't be in that network if they weren't that way.
Exactly.
That.
I agree. Yeah.
So what does the future hold then? What does the future look like for you and your business? Money no object, success is guaranteed. What does it look like?
I like that. So definitely growth, yes.
Yeah.
So if we count back to date, it's nearly a year and a half.
Okay.
I closed officially my first year in October.
Okay, well done.
Thank you. Big celebration. I had a first birthday party to mark the first year, and
celebrate those wins.
And so great brands, big names. I'm tapping into, so it's really exciting. Also proves that you are unlimited and unstoppable. You just need to believe in that. Also, I had an interesting realization, I think, after closing the first year. Christmas came, I closed my first year October time, and then Christmas came, and I was like, It's interesting because I'm just realizing it now. It was absolutely not conscious or anything, but I was like, oh, okay, you made your first year, like you were in this constant, like crazy founder mode of like, just do it, Red Bull, you know, lack of sleep. And you're just like, it's your baby, you push it through no matter what. And I'm like, okay, Christmas came. Now maybe I could just enjoy it a little bit and I can allow myself to take a big breath and say, well done, you made 1 year and it's now on, this business is happening. You can actually now start believing that, you know, what's written on the business card is true. Like you are a founder, you're a CEO. And I think from that point, somehow unconsciously, I was just expecting things rolling on their own way. Or again, it was totally not something I actually thought through. But I don't know what I was waiting for, but I felt like, oh, it's maybe not that many clients coming in, or maybe not that money coming in. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Like, this business is on, like, what's happening? And I think I just had to like stop for a second and realize that, yes, you made 1 year, but like, you're not done. You know what I mean? It's like, it's still on and it's probably will be on. And in the future, you're going to face next level challenges. And then running a business and being a business owner, it's not about pushing through your first year and then like, oh, I made it. You know what I mean? And then, I just, the more I'm in this and the more business owners or founders I'm talking to, the more, I don't know, inspiration I get, or the more, as you just said, like, you know, confirmation I get that I'm not alone. Yes, it's hard. No, it's not about your first year. And then they say, yeah, your first year is the most difficult and the hardest. Some people, no, the second. and I guess it's like, you know, the more you go along. But anyway, I just realized that, you still put in the same effort. You can't really, you know, stop just because you made 1 year. And clients are not just gonna appear from out of nowhere.
It's hard. It's a hard job.
It's still, you know, the same speed. It's like non-stop, but it was an interesting realization, I must say. To be very honest with you, I actually hit like a low point with the whole thing. But I think the level of my passion and how much I'm engaged to make this a success and like keep going and, you know, not giving up is like so strong. I feel it so strongly that it just gives me, you know, strength to make it through and then keep going. But it's this startup owner journey is on one hand very challenging, but also beautiful, amazing, and very rewarding.
It's not easy, and it don't matter what level you're at, whether you've got a £10,000 company, £100,000 company, £1 million company, it's always on. There's always something that is unresolved. I think that's what you resign yourself to, that you can't solve everything in a day. There will be unresolved things. So that might be the pipeline needs to grow, or it might mean there needs to be a project that's got to be changed slightly because the client's not quite liking what you're doing, or there's a contract that seems to be taking forever, or someone's not paying their bill. There's always some unresolved conflict, and I think that was the biggest learning that I've got over the years, is that
that's interesting, to be okay with
unresolved.
You can't like make everything right in a day.
100%.
But that's so pressuring in it. But you realize, like from time to time, I also come to this realization that yes, there is an end of the day. You must sleep. You need to close down that laptop. Yes, and next day, yes. The problem is not resolved, as you said, but like let's come back to this tomorrow.
Learning to live.
How interesting, yeah.
So when you're on your own, often when you're on your own, the conversations or the situations you could probably fix yourself. When you grow and you've got, like you said, you've got freelance staff and people like that, when you grow in number and size of client, you then learn to live with the unresolved. There are millions of conversations going on, and some are great and some are not so great. And that might be because you can't get hold of somebody, or there's a misunderstanding. And I've learned now that you celebrate the successes, but there's always going to be unresolved things, always. And that could be unresolved conflict, unresolved, you can't get hold of someone, and learn to live and learn to get used to that. Because for me, that used to drive me nuts. It's like, no, I want to get everything sorted. Have I ticked everything up? Is every conversation ticked? Is everything, and you literally burn yourself like for hours and hours and hours and hours, and you exhaust yourself. Now I go, well, there are 15 things, and I'm probably this week I'd love to get all 15 done, but in reality we'll probably get 8, and there'll be another 8 that are unresolved, and there might be some other unresolved things that pop up along the way. And it's learning to live in that space that, you know, it's not going to be perfect, but live there and learn to live in the imperfection. Because I think if you want in life to be perfect, then even if you were working for someone, you're going to set yourself up for, you know, failure. But in the realm of entrepreneurship, for example, is understanding that there is going to be things that are unresolved, and you just got to be content with it. That is life. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your company. There's nothing wrong with your approach. There will be unresolved things that you cannot solve. And I think if you can learn to live with that, it's not necessarily lack of care. It's just to say, I can't solve it all in a day.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's great for your mental fitness.
Yes.
Because ultimately then you go, right, okay, so we started the day, we had 15 things, we've only solved 8 of them, we'll carry another 8 on to the next thing. And ultimately, you know, we'll just try and be better than we were the day before. That's
100%.
That's all what it's about. So, you know, for me, that's the journey of an entrepreneur. It's not easy, it's not up for everybody. We are deemed to be crazy. You know, the dreamers, the innovators. But at the end of the day, the rewards are good, you know, as in you'll see people's lives impacted. And like with you, you've got educating people how to look after their staff better, because you've been the other side of the fence, and the insights that you have that you can give to other people are going to be great, you know, and people are going to buy into what you're going through. But I think... I
experienced this not perfect thing as well quite a few times now. And, you know, there's this rule, this 20-80%. A rule that if you know, you need to let go like this perfect image and stuff, and then when you get to 80% ready with a project, with anything, with a client, with an article, with a blog post, with a podcast, doesn't really matter. But when you feel like it's 80% perfect, 80% ready, we just push it out, because you know, I had many of these moments before, and I'm very proud when I catch myself, you know, like with my marketing freelancer lady, and we are just saying, so what should be the subject of this month newsletter? And they're like, let's ask ChatGPT as well. Okay, ChatGPT said that. That's too creative. Okay, let's have a thing. And then when you're like for 35 minutes just sitting and just brainstorming on a Zoom call, just the two of you with ChatGPT about a flipping like subject line of an email, and I'm like, I remember I just said that, you know what? This is good enough. You know what? The people who is interested, they're going to open this newsletter anyways, because they see it's from us. And the content is really good. So let's just push it out and not spend more time. And it repeated quite a few times when I was like, you know what? It's good enough. Yes, it could be better. Yes, we could spend a bit more time on rewriting an article, or, you know, perfecting whatever project or our presentation deck or images or whatever. But let's just, you know, crack on, because we need the time.
I look at it this way. If you know, part of what we do is a brand agency. We do movies and make videos and stuff. If you listen or watch anything of a film director, they will tell you, even though it's the best film ever written and you've enjoyed the experience, they will be able to tell you where it wasn't quite as they wanted it. But you haven't noticed. You know, as long as you got the moral of the story, so to speak, the lighting could be better on that clip, or there was, you know, somebody left it was a period drama, and someone spotted a number plate of modern day in the background that they missed out. But in general, the general feeling is, if it tells the story and conveys the message, ultimately that's it. And the thing is, we all work within time. You know, and so like you can have 5 years to make a movie, but it's actually better that you have 6 months, because you just get it done. Because in 5 years you'll probably reinvent it about 12 times, and I think sometimes time restriction actually is a good thing, not a bad thing. And in the world of creative, you know, creatives hate deadlines, but ultimately you need those deadlines to get it done, and then do something else and do something else. Otherwise, you'll just keep reinventing the same thing over and over.
Agreed. Yeah.
So how would people be able to reach out to you, Mesi? How they get in contact with you? They've enjoyed what they've heard today and want to hear about how they can improve their staff well-being. So how would they reach out to you?
Yeah, so we can share the website link.
What is that? Just say it for them.
That's treatyourstuff.co.uk.
Okay.
So that's us. We also have an Insta account, Treat Your Stuff as well. LinkedIn, like we are everywhere.
Yep.
Facebook as well. And happy to share that I'm also running my own podcast, which is really cool.
Great.
And it's on YouTube and on Spotify as well. So we can share those links as well.
They'll be in the show notes. We'll get all that in the show notes for you.
Yes, thank you. And it's the title is Confidence. It's called the Confidence Code podcast. Because I just thought that it's an interesting topic, confidence, right? And I thought it's mainly about well-being, and I'm inviting people from the health and well-being industry to similarly having inspiring conversation about their journey and how they go through life's challenges and what confidence means for them. I think sometimes it's a bit mystified, this thing, confidence, and people are a bit like, I don't know, judgy, like, yeah, you're lucky because you have that, and then the other person is less successful because they don't have that. I think that's not true. I'm a fan of like uncovering, what's really behind confidence and how, and just generally helping people how to realize, their own potential and how to unlock what they have inside. Awesome. And educating them. So we're running workshops as well, by the way, on confidence. It's one of my favorite topics, I think, which is a bit too mystified. And it's just, if you really look behind, it's really easy to unpack and unlock.
Well, that's another date for another podcast, I
think.
So thank you so much for taking the time and coming and visiting us all the way out in the countryside. Mm-hmm. We'll be up and we'll get all the stuff on the show notes to tell everybody how to reach you. But thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Purpose People podcast. How you can help us is to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google and Amazon. That helps us get our message out there to help people go after their dreams, double down on it and be successful in life on their terms.